When I got back from Montana and my wife hit me with a divorce request right at the door, I didn't fall apart or start begging. I just looked her in the eye and said, "Okay." The stunned expression on her face made every tough second worth it. She thought I'd collapse, like the shaky foundations I spend my days fixing. But I stayed solid while she struggled to figure out why her carefully planned betrayal didn't break me. Just 4 days later, her desperate messages started coming in. "I made a mistake," she texted. But it was way too late. I had already uncovered the hidden bank accounts she'd been quietly setting up for months. Some foundations, once cracked, can never be repaired. My name's James Carter, and I'm 40 years old. Up until about 6 months ago, I thought I had life pretty well sorted out. As a geotechnical engineer, I made a living designing earthquake-resistant foundations, always one step ahead of disaster. Funny how I could predict a landslide under a skyscraper but didn't see the cracks forming right under my own roof. That Wednesday morning flipped my whole world upside down. I had just gotten back from a brutal 3-month assignment up in Montana, working on foundation systems for a new oil pipeline. It was tough, freezing work, but I managed to pull it off. The company even handed me a fat bonus check for getting the job done ahead of schedule. I walked through our front door with a bottle of Sophia's favorite wine in one hand and plans for a second honeymoon running through my head. Instead, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, calm and cold. "We need to talk, James," she said, her voice flat like she'd practiced it a dozen times. I set my bags down, still smiling. "I missed you too," I said. She didn't smile back. "I want a divorce," she said. 4 small words. Simple, sharp, brutal. It hit me like a demolition blast, something shifting deep inside. But on the outside, I didn't move a muscle. 16 years of working under pressure had taught me one thing: panicking never helps. I pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "Okay," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Can I ask why?" The way her eyes widened told me she didn't expect that reaction. Sophia blinked fast, her cool front starting to crack. "Okay, that's it." She leaned closer, frustration creeping into her voice. "I just told you I want a divorce." I nodded slowly. "I heard you. I'm just trying to understand." "You're always gone," she blurted out, her words sharp now. 3 months in Montana. Before that, 7 weeks in Texas. Even when you're home, it's like you're not here. "I've been busting my tail to build us a future," I replied, keeping my tone level even though my chest felt like it was tightening. "The promotion's coming through next month. Things are about to get better." She shook her head, already looking past me. "I've heard that before, James." Her voice softened, but not in a good way. "I can't do this anymore. I've already spoken to a lawyer." That hit different. She hadn't just made up her mind today. She'd been planning this for a while, probably while I was freezing my hands off for 12-hour shifts up north. I could have yelled. I could have begged. But something deep down inside refused to snap. Instead, I stood up, poured myself a glass of water, and said, as calmly as I could, "If that's what you want, I'm not going to fight you." Even I was surprised at how steady I sounded. Sophia looked at me like I'd slapped her. She had expected a scene, shouting, pleading, maybe even tears. My calm threw her off worse than any outburst could have. "The papers will be ready next week," she said stiffly, grabbing her purse. "I'm staying at my sister's tonight." She walked out, and I stood there in the kitchen, alone with the wine I'd brought to celebrate. As the front door slammed behind her, a strange realization settled over me. I was still standing, and somehow, that felt like a win. I didn't call anybody to tell them what happened, not my crew at work, not my brother Adam, not even my best friend Chris. It wasn't shame that kept me quiet. It was a strange kind of clarity, like I needed to protect whatever was left of myself before letting anyone else's voice get inside my head. The morning after Sophia left, I showed up at the office like nothing had happened. My team was all smiles, congratulating me on the success in Montana, completely unaware that my marriage had just collapsed. "The big boss wants to see you," said Lily, my project coordinator. "Sounds like that promotion's coming sooner than we thought." I forced a smile and nodded. "Great. I'll head up now." Inside Ethan's office, surrounded by maps, per samples, and blueprints, I shook his hand and officially accepted the position of Senior Project Director. 25% raise, my own team, first pick of projects, everything I'd been grinding toward for years. "We're thinking about sending you to Japan," Ethan said. "Their seismic retrofitting program could use a guy like you." "When would that be?" I asked. "For weeks. 7 months minimum." "Problem?" "Not at all," I said, keeping my voice cool. "Honestly, perfect timing." That night, I came home to an even emptier house. While I was at work, Sophia had swung by. More of her clothes were gone. Some of the kitchen appliances had disappeared too, along with her grandmother's old china set. Sitting on the kitchen counter was a folder with a sticky note, divorce agreement draft. Out of curiosity, I flipped through the folder she left behind. Most of it was pretty standard, splitting the assets down the middle. No big surprises until I hit the financial section. That's when I saw it. Sophia wanted half of my upcoming bonus and any raise I got within the next 7 months. I actually let out a quiet laugh. She knew about the promotion. Maybe she had even timed her exit just right to cash in on it. Shaking my head, I poured myself a glass of scotch and carried it into my home office. In the bottom drawer of my desk, buried under a stack of old blueprints, was a small black notebook. I flipped it open to a blank page and started writing down everything I could remember from the past year. Every little thing that seemed off but hadn't clicked at the time. Sophia's Wednesday night book clubs that ran longer and longer. The sudden password changes on her phone. Those vague work retreats over the weekends with no real details. Back then, I didn't think twice. I was too buried in the Montana project to connect the dots. But now, sitting there with a pen in hand, the pattern was obvious. Clear as day. And strangely, as I wrote it all out, I didn't feel angry or heartbroken. I felt calm. Somewhere along the line, without even realizing it, I had stopped fighting for Sophia's attention. The man who once would have moved mountains to save his marriage, he was long gone, replaced by someone who saw things for what they were and accepted it. My phone buzzed, breaking the quiet. It was a text from Chris. "You're tomorrow? Heard you crushed Montana." I stared at it for a moment, thinking about how easy it would be to just spill everything. Let it all out over a couple of drinks. Instead, I typed back. "Can't. Heading to the office early. Rain check?" I wasn't ready yet. Saying it out loud would make it real, and right now, I needed to stay focused, needed to get my own footing before letting anyone else into the mess. For days after Sophia had left, my phone lit up again, this time with a message from her. "Need to talk. Can we meet?" 6 little words. I stared at them, feeling nothing, really. Just a strange detachment. The old James would have dropped everything. He would have clung to the hope that maybe she wanted to patch things up. But the man I was becoming just texted back. "I'm heading to the Chattanooga site. Can talk at 6:30. Chattanooga was built on some pretty questionable soil. They called me in to check out reports of settling foundations. It was straightforward work, the kind that kept my hands busy and gave my mind some space to work through the emotional aftershocks. I was kneeling in the dirt, running soil density tests, when my phone buzzed again. It was Adam, my brother. "Hey stranger," he said. "Mom says you're not returning her calls." "Been busy," I answered, scribbling notes on my clipboard. "Too busy for dinner tomorrow?" "Rachel's making her famous lasagna." I paused. I knew what family dinner would really mean. A lot of questions I wasn't ready to answer. "Rain check," I said, swamped with promotion paperwork. "Promotion? James, that's awesome. We should celebrate." "Soon," I promised. "How's Max doing with baseball?" Adam took the bait and launched into a story about my nephew's latest game. I half listened, grateful for the change of subject while I finished up my work. When I hung up, it hit me. Eventually, I was going to have to tell them. Just not today. By 5:45, I wrapped things up at the site and drove over to Blue Wave Cafe, a little spot Sophia had picked for our meeting. Neutral ground. She was already there, sitting outside with her sunglasses on even though the sky was gray and heavy. "Thanks for meeting me," she said as I sat down. I just nodded, letting her steer the conversation. "I found an apartment," she said, twirling her wine glass. "I'll be moving the rest of my stuff this weekend." "Okay," I said simply. "Need help with anything heavy?" She frowned and pulled off her sunglasses, studying me. "That's it. You're just fine with all this." I looked her dead in the eye. "What did you expect, Sophia? That I'd fall apart? That I'd beg you to stay?" "I expected you to at least ask why," she said, her voice tight. I shrugged. "Would it change anything if I did? Or would it just make you feel better about leaving?" She blinked, thrown off by how flat and steady my voice was. "You're different," she said quietly. "No," I corrected. "I'm exactly who I've always been. You just weren't paying attention." The waiter came by and took our orders. She asked for wine. I stuck with water. "There's something else," she said once the waiter left. "The attorney suggested we list the house immediately. The market's strong." I didn't even flinch. "I'm keeping the house." "James, be reasonable," she started. "We both." I'll buy out your half. I cut her off. Fair market value. My tone left no room for argument. I had built the foundation of that house with my own 2 hands. I wasn't about to walk away from it. She opened her mouth like she was about to argue, then closed it again, just studying me like she was sitting across from a stranger. Maybe she was. The man she had left behind wasn't waiting for her approval anymore. I should go, she said finally, pushing her chair back. As she stood, she hesitated. This isn't how I thought this would go, she said. For a second, I almost asked her what she meant. But watching her walk away, I realized I didn't need her explanations anymore. They wouldn't change a damn thing. Instead, I turned my focus toward Japan. The offer from the company gave me a new purpose. I threw myself into prepping, brushing up on the language, digging into Yokohama's building codes, looking into housing options. Work had always been my safe place. Now, it was my salvation. 1 week after Sophia dropped her bombshell, I found myself sitting across from a loan officer at the bank, trying to sort out buying her share of the house. The numbers were steep, no doubt about it, but with the bump in my new salary, they were manageable. It just meant putting off buying that custom truck I'd been eyeing for a while. Small price to pay to keep the house. These divorce refinances can get tricky, the banker said casually, clicking around on his computer, especially when there are still joint accounts involved. I frowned. Joint accounts? We closed those years ago. He gave me a look, then tapped at the keyboard. You've still got one open. Investment account. Opened about 7 months back. 7 months ago. That was when I was in Texas, neck deep in the seismic project. Sophia had handled all the tax paperwork during that time. Can you tell me the current balance? I asked, feeling a knot form in my gut. The banker turned his screen toward me. I stared at the number, and my stomach dropped. $118,000. Almost the exact amount of what I expected for my annual bonus and my share of our savings. I kept my face neutral, thanked the banker, and left the building. But inside, something hard and cold settled in. This wasn't just Sophia walking away from the marriage. She had been planning her exit for months, setting it all up, piece by piece, while I was too busy working my tail off to notice. That night, I canceled dinner plans and drove over to the dock, a bar where Chris and I used to meet up after long days. I found him at our usual table. The prodigal engineer appears, Chris joked, grinning. I was starting to think you forgot how to socialize. I dropped into the seat across from him, heavier than I meant to. Sophia asked for a divorce. Chris's grin vanished. What? When? Last week. She was gone before I even set my bags down from Montana. James, seriously, why didn't you call me? He flagged down the bartender for 2 beers. Had to process it first, I admitted. But now I need your help. Anything, he said without hesitation. Sophia opened a joint investment account behind my back. She's trying to claim half my bonus, and probably more. Chris's expression shifted fast, from friend to forensic accountant. He leaned in. Forward me your bank statements. All of them. Last 12 months. And James, change every password you have. Tonight. I nodded, feeling, for the first time in days, a sliver of real relief. Yeah, the ground beneath me had shifted, but I was starting to get my footing. I'd spent my career designing earthquake-resistant buildings. Now it was time to rebuild myself the same way, stronger, smarter, without any fault lines hiding underneath. 3 weeks after finding the hidden account, I got a call that rattled me for a whole different reason. It was Rachel, my sister-in-law. Her voice was tight, anxious. James, sorry to bother you. Have you talked to Adam recently? Not since last week. Why? What's going on? He had chest pains at work yesterday. They're keeping him at Memorial for observation. Before she finished, I was already grabbing my keys. I'm on my way. When I got to the hospital, Adam looked pale but alert, sitting up in bed. Rachel hovered close, and their son Max was curled up in a chair, glued to his handheld game. Minor cardiac event, Adam said with a weak smile, trying to downplay it. Doc says I need to take it easy for a bit. While a nurse checked his vitals, Rachel pulled me aside, her eyes worried. He's being stubborn, she said quietly. The doctor wants him off work for at least 5 weeks, but he's freaking out about falling behind on the mortgage. Adam was a construction foreman. No work meant no paycheck. Don't worry about it, I said, meaning every word. I'll cover whatever you guys need. Rachel shook her head immediately. James, we can't ask you. You're not asking, I cut her off. It's family. It's done. Later, Sitting with Max in the hospital cafeteria, giving Rachel some time alone with Adam, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophia. James, I've been thinking about us. I made a mistake. Can we talk? I stared at it, feeling nothing but mild annoyance. A month ago, that message would have wrecked me had my heart racing with hope. Now, it just felt empty. Like one more manipulation. Uncle James. Max's voice snapped me out of it. You okay? I shoved my phone back in my pocket and smiled. I'm good, buddy. How's the game going? I'm stuck on level 7, he admitted. There's this lava pit I can't get past. Show me, I said, moving my chair closer to his. Sophia's message could wait. This was what mattered. That evening, after making sure Rachel and Adam had everything they needed for the night, I finally texted Sophia back. Not interested in talking about us. If it's about the divorce, contact my lawyer. Her reply came almost instantly. Please, James. I know I messed up. I miss you. I didn't answer. Instead, I called Chris. How's the account investigation going? I asked. Found the smoking gun, he said. Sophia transferred $45,000 to a personal account back in January. There's more. Dinner tomorrow. Can't, I said, helping Adam and Rachel. Adam's heart's acting up. You need anything? I can swing by, bring food. For a second, I couldn't say anything. I was just hit by this wave of gratitude, real friendship, the kind you could count on. Thanks, man, I said. I might take you up on that. Actually, yeah. Rachel could definitely use a break from hospital food. After hanging up, I glanced down at Sophia's last message again. 5 simple words. I know I messed up. But those words barely scratched the surface of what she had really done. The cold planning. The hidden accounts. The way she had timed everything to hurt the least and take the most. I deleted the conversation without a second thought and turned my attention to the prep materials for Japan. Some foundations, once cracked deep enough, couldn't be patched. Sometimes the only choice was to tear it down and start fresh, this time on solid ground. The confrontation happened sooner than I expected, and of all places, it happened at Adam's house. I was dropping off groceries, helping Max with his science project at the kitchen table, when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Rachel opened the door, and I could hear the confusion in her voice. Sophia? This is unexpected. I need to speak with James, Sophia said, her voice carrying through the hallway into the kitchen. I stood up, wiping my hands on a dish towel, feeling Max's curious gaze on my back. I stepped into the living room, keeping my voice calm and steady. What are you doing here? And how did you know where to find me? Sophia glanced at Rachel and Max, her eyes darting around like she suddenly realized this wasn't the private conversation she had imagined. Can we talk privately? She asked. No, I said simply. Whatever you have to say, you can say it right here. There was no wiggle room in my tone. She hesitated, then straightened her shoulders like she was preparing for a speech. I made a terrible mistake, James. I want to come home. For a second, the surreal nature of the moment just hit me. My soon-to-be ex-wife, standing in my brother's living room, asking for a second chance, while his kid looked on, wide-eyed. No, I said again. Calm. Direct. Sophia blinked like she hadn't prepared for that answer. James, please. I was confused, stressed about work. I didn't realize what I was throwing away. I shook my head. You didn't just ask for a divorce, Sophia. You planned it for months. You moved money. You set it all up to take as much as you could. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Rachel inhale sharply. This was news to her. That's not true, Sophia said quickly, but she couldn't hold my stare. Her eyes flickered away, the same way they used to when she fibbed about little things. I turned to Max. Hey buddy, why don't you check if that solder is cooled down? He hesitated, looking between me and Sophia, but finally wandered back to the kitchen. Once he was out of earshot, I faced her again. Chris found the transfers. All of them. The account you opened under your mother's maiden name. The consultation with the divorce attorney, 7 months ago. All the color drained from her face. I can explain, she started. I'm not interested, I cut her off. The divorce proceeds exactly as planned. And if you contact me again about anything other than legal matters, I'll have my attorney pursue financial misconduct charges. You wouldn't, she whispered, her voice shaking. I gave her a small, grim smile. The James you knew wouldn't, I said. But I'm not that man anymore. She left without another word. As her car disappeared down the street, Rachel came up and placed a hand gently on my arm. You okay? She asked softly. I watched the taillights vanish. Better than I've been in years, I said honestly. Later that evening, I called Ethan to confirm I was taking the Japan assignment. 6 months abroad. It sounded like exactly the kind of fresh start I needed. Glad to hear it, Ethan said. The team's excited to have you leading this project. When can you fly out for the preliminary inspection? How's next week sound? I asked, already feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. When I hung up the phone, I realized I was smiling. Not because I had won against Sophia. This wasn't about winning or losing. It was about finally standing on solid ground again. Ground I could trust, my work, my family, and most of all, myself. Yokohama welcomed me with a steady rain and an avalanche of paperwork. The first week blurred past in a rush of meetings, site inspections, and getting introduced to the local engineering team. Their approach to seismic design fascinated me, less about brute strength, more about flexibility, absorbing energy rather than fighting it. Well, James Nakamura, the lead Japanese engineer, said with a rare smile, handing me an umbrella as we headed to a site inspection. You've adapted quickly to our methods. I returned the smile, meaning it. Your techniques are brilliant, I said. I'm here to learn just as much as I'm here to lead. The Minato development was a massive project, a 30-story residential tower built on reclaimed land. My job was making sure the foundation could survive whatever the earth decided to throw at it. That evening, back in my tiny but efficient apartment, I was going over soil composition reports when my phone lit up with Chris's name. How's Japan? He asked when I picked up. Challenging. Rewarding. Exactly what I needed. Good to hear, he said. Then his tone shifted. Listen, I've got news about Sophia. I sat up a little straighter. Go ahead. Her lawyer reached out to yours with a settlement offer. She's dropping all claims to your bonus and your pension. I frowned. What's the catch? That's the thing, Chris said. There doesn't seem to be one. She's asking for a clean break. Minimal asset division. Fast-track timeline. This wasn't the Sophia I remembered. Did something happen? I asked. Chris hesitated. Well, rumor is her book club buddy Lucas got transferred to Tucson. Suddenly, she's in a big hurry to wrap everything up. And just like that, the pieces slid into place. Her sudden change of heart wasn't about us. It wasn't about regret or love or any of the things she pretended. It was about convenience. Her plans had fallen apart, and I was just another loose end she needed to tie up. Tell my lawyer to move forward, I said. But double-check everything. Twice. After hanging up, I stood at my window, staring out at the Yokohama skyline, lights shimmering through the steady rain. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt relieved. Relieved that this chapter was finally closing without another ugly fight. The next morning, I threw myself into the Minato project harder than ever. The team fed off my energy, and by the end of the week, we solved a major design flaw that had been dogging them for months. Well, James, Nakamura said, lifting his glass at our little after-work celebration. You see problems differently. That is valuable. I smiled, feeling the warmth of sake and something deeper in my chest. Sometimes you need distance to see things clearly, I said, thinking about a lot more than just engineering. As the evening wore on, and the sake flowed a little freer, it hit me, really hit me. I wasn't just surviving out here. I was happy, not despite being half a world away from my old life, but because of it. The foundation I was building wasn't just for that tower in Minato. It was for me. Stronger, smarter, more resilient. 3 months into the assignment, Ethan called with unexpected news. The Nakamura Group is impressed, he said. They want you to head up the seismic division for their international projects. I sat up a little straighter. That's a 2-year commitment, minimum. It is, he said. But we'd triple your current salary. Plus equity. They're serious, James. This could set you up for life. I told him I'd think about it. Spent that night just wandering Yokohama's neon-lit streets, letting it sink in. A permanent move to Japan had never been part of the plan. But plans hadn't exactly been reliable lately. The next morning, an email popped up from Adam, pictures of Max at his baseball championship. There he was, grinning ear to ear at home plate, holding up his trophy like he just conquered the world. It pulled at something deep inside me, a reminder of what I'd be leaving behind if I stayed. That night, I called Adam, ignoring the time difference. Hey stranger, he answered. How's the land of the rising sun? Good. Different. How's the heart? Back to normal, he said. Doc says it was a wake-up call, not a death sentence. He paused. Rachel and Max miss you. So do I. I miss you guys too, I said, feeling it more than I expected. Took a breath and just put it out there. I've been offered a permanent position here. Adam whistled low. Impressive. You taking it? Still deciding. There was a pause. How's everything else? I asked. His tone shifted a little. Sophia stopped by last week. Dropped off some old family photos she thought you might want. I stiffened. What did she say? Not much. She seemed different. Quieter. Rachel thinks she's genuinely sorry. I didn't answer right away. I learned the hard way not to trust Sophia's apologies, or my own heart when it came to her. The divorce was finalized yesterday, I said finally. It's done. Adam was quiet for a second. How do you feel about that? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Relieved, I said. Ready to move forward. Forward in Japan? Or forward here? That was the question, wasn't it? The job offer promised prestige, money, security. But something deeper was tugging at me, pulling me back toward the foundation I already had. Family, roots, home. That weekend, I took the train to Nara. Spent hours wandering through the ancient temples, staring up at structures that had survived centuries of earthquakes and wars. Their secret wasn't just technical brilliance. It was their connection to the earth beneath them, their flexibility, their respect for the forces bigger than themselves. They didn't fight nature. They worked with it. On the ride back to Yokohama, I made my decision. The next morning, I called Ethan. I'm honored by Nakamura's offer, I said carefully, but I'm going to have to decline. There was a long pause. Mind if I ask why? Ethan finally said, This is a career-defining opportunity. Family, I said simply. I need to go home. As I hung up, a new email popped up on my screen. It was from my real estate agent back home. She'd found a property 6 acres just outside town. Flat, fertile land. Development potential. Perfect for building a new home. There was a kind of symmetry in that I couldn't ignore. I booked my flight back to the States that same day, for the first time in years feeling certain of the ground I stood on. Exactly 1 year later, I stood on my own land, watching concrete pour into the foundation forms of my future home. The early morning sun threw long shadows across the 6 acres I now owned, free and clear. No arguments. No divisions. No disputes. Looking good, Uncle James. Max called, balancing a trowel carefully as he helped the crew smooth out a section of concrete. At 12 years old, he was already eager to learn everything he could about construction, and I was more than happy to teach him. Keep that edge straight, I called back with a grin. A good foundation determines everything that comes after. Adam walked up beside me, handing me a coffee. You're starting to sound like Dad, he said, a little smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I took the coffee with a nod, feeling the compliment settle warmly in my chest. Our father had been a carpenter, a man who believed, almost religiously, that if you didn't build it right the first time, it wasn't worth building at all. I finally understood exactly what he meant. How's Rachel feeling about the baby? I asked. Excited. Nervous, Adam said, giving a small laugh. Doctor says everything looks perfect. It's a girl this time. He shot me a sideways glance. You know, this place has plenty of room for a family of your own someday. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I watched the concrete flow steadily into the complex foundation forms I had designed. I'd gone a little overboard, adding special vibration dampening features and reinforced sections, maybe more than necessary, but I learned the hard way that you build from solid, unshakable ground. One step at a time, I finally said with a half smile. For now, I'm just enjoying the build. After Adam took Max off to baseball practice, I spent some time walking the perimeter of the house that was slowly taking shape. The design was my own, modern but inviting, with big windows facing east to catch the sunrise every morning. It was a single-story, open concept with a detached workshop where I could tinker with new ideas for construction methods. My phone buzzed. A text from Nakamura. Carter-san, design approved by committee. Yokohama project proceeding with your innovations. I couldn't help but grin. Even though I had turned down the permanent position in Japan, I kept up a consulting relationship with the Nakamura Group. My earthquake-resistant foundation system was now being used in projects all over the Pacific Rim, and the royalties weren't bad either. Later that afternoon, Chris showed up at the site, blueprints in hand for the vacation cabin he wanted to build. The mighty builder in his natural habitat, he joked, looking around at the progress. Just a guy who knows what he wants, I said, rolling out his plans on the makeshift table. As we pored over the designs, Chris's face grew a little more serious. Ran into Sophia at the grocery store yesterday, he said. I kept studying the blueprints, feeling nothing but mild curiosity. How'd that go? Awkward. She asked about you. What did you tell her? That you're building a house, running a consulting business, and seem happier than I've seen you in years. He hesitated. She's moving to Tucson next month. Seemed like she wanted me to pass that along. I just nodded, making a small note on his plans to reinforce the support beams. I wish her well, I said, and I meant it. Whatever anger I'd carried was long gone, replaced with a clear understanding that we were never right for each other. The divorce hadn't broken me, it had stripped me down and showed me who I really was. You're a better man than I would be, Chris said, shaking his head. Not better, I corrected him. Just focused on building something that lasts. 19 months after Sophia first asked for a divorce, I hosted Thanksgiving dinner in my finished home. The dining table, handmade from local oak, comfortably sat 11, Adam, Rachel, Max, their new baby girl Olivia, my parents, Chris and his new girlfriend, a few close friends from the firm. To James, my dad said, lifting his glass, for giving us this beautiful place to gather and for showing us what real resilience looks like. The toast hit me harder than I expected. I looked around the room at the people who had stood by me, loved me for who I was, no strings attached. To family, I said, raising my glass. The foundation that never fails. After dinner, while everyone moved to the living room for coffee and pie, my mom pulled me aside. I ran into Sophia's mother at a charity auction last week, she said quietly. She mentioned Sophia's engaged. I nodded, feeling nothing but a surprising sense of calm. That's good. I hope she's happy. My mom watched me carefully. You've changed, James. A year ago, you wouldn't have meant that. A year ago, I was still putting myself back together, I admitted. Now I'm just living. Later, as the evening wound down and folks started heading home, Max came up to me, beaming with excitement. Uncle James, will you help me with my science project tomorrow? It's a model of different foundation types and how they hold up in earthquakes. Absolutely, I told him, smiling. Best way to understand something is to try to break it first. After everyone left, I sat out on the back deck, watching the stars pop out one by one in the cold December sky. The property was peaceful, the house settling around me with the comforting creaks and groans of a well-built structure. My phone buzzed, an email from Ethan. Another consulting offer. This time, chilly. 7 months ago, I would have jumped at the chance without thinking, eager to bury myself in work. Now, I found myself thinking it over. Carefully, weighing what I'd gain against what I might leave behind. I thought of Sophia, of starting a new life of her own. I thought of Adam and Rachel, raising their kids with steady hands and big hearts. I thought about the young engineer who had recently asked me to mentor her, hoping to learn something from me. At the end of the day, it wasn't about choosing between career and family. It was about finding a balance, building a life that could hold both. I typed a careful response to Ethan, suggesting a short-term consulting deal that wouldn't require me to relocate. Then I sent a quick text to Rachel, confirming Saturday dinner. As I headed for bed, I paused in the hallway. I stopped in the hallway, my eyes landing on the framed blueprint hanging on the wall, the very first thing I'd put up after moving in. It was a detailed drawing of the house, but the foundation layer was what stood out, traced in bold blue lines. A dense, intricate network of supports, carefully designed to handle anything life or nature might throw at it. I reached out and ran my hand along the solid wall beside me, feeling the strength hidden just beneath the surface. The symbolism wasn't lost on me, but standing there, I realized. I didn't need to explain it anymore. I didn't have to prove anything to anyone. I just knew, with a calm certainty deep in my bones, that I was exactly where I was meant to be, on ground that was finally, fully, mine.